With the Senior Bowl finally over, here are my top 5 takeaways from this past week.
J-E-T-S, Jets, Jets! If it moves, hit it! If it don't move, hit it! And if you're not sure, guess what? Hit it! Let's come out of this the most physical team on that field today, regardless. Let's win the hitting battle. You got me? Yes, sir.
All right, welcome to Jets Talk. My name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Boys and girls, not only did we win the hitting battle, but we won the overall game. Ron Middleton captures his second win of his head coaching career, leading the national team to a 20-10 victory over the Lions-led American team down at the Reese's Senior Bowl this past weekend. And I want to go over all the little details that we learned across the week, and then I'll give you my top 5 takeaways from this past week at the Senior Bowl. So like I said, this is a really important game. NFL teams really take this game seriously, but it's kind of weird. You don't hear as much rumblings from the fans, aside from like the really, really diehards that are like focused on the draft. So over the course of the last 5 years, why we can tell this is important. The Rams and Bengals are in the top 7 in terms of drafting Senior Bowl players. Both those teams representing in the Super Bowl this year. So it might not be a bad way to go about getting some prospects. Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, and Von Miller were all Senior Bowl participants, so it's nice knowing that you can get some really elite players from this game. Not to mention just watching last year's Senior Bowl. Najee Harris, Elijah Mitchell, Michael Carter, Khalil Herbert, Demetric Felton, Quinn Miners, words are hard, Devontae Smith, Ramondre Stevenson, Mac Jones, Josh Palmer, Larry Roundtree, Trey Smith, Kadarius Toney, Dan Moore, Landon Dickerson. Lots of really good talent at the Senior Bowl. Very, very important. Now, in terms of teams that we are maybe associated with or kind of thought to be around, the Ravens are tied for second with 20 players drafted over the course of the last 5 years. That's 44% of their picks. In fifth, you have the Rams with 18 Senior Bowl picks. That's 40% of their draft picks. Keep in mind, they don't have any like first round picks because they've traded them all away for like a zillion players over the course of the last like 6 years. So they're taking all these guys in later rounds. The 49ers and the Packers both tied at 8th with 16 players selected over the course of the last 5 years, 2 of which for each of these teams were in the first round. So obviously Joe Douglas has the Ravens connection. The Rams with McVay spent time together with the whole Shanahan coaching tree, so that's kind of nice to see. The 49ers and Packers, obviously we got the 49ers coaching staff from last year, and the Packers, obviously Matt LaFleur is up in Green Bay, brothers with offensive coordinator of the Jets, Mike LaFleur. So yeah, this is important. You can find some really, really good talent in this game. Now, like I said, we wind up winning, or national team winds up winning 20-10, and it's pretty cool. Let's take away some of the thoughts from this game. Over the course of the week, we saw that the national team, we'll talk about the national team, then we'll talk about the game overall. Player of the week this week was guard/center Zion Johnson out of Boston College. He could possibly be a second-round pick somewhere along those lines if you don't wind up going with a Neal or an Ekwonu at the top of the draft. ABRAM Smith out of Baylor was the top running back for the national team. I liked what I got out of him from this past weekend. He seems to be a late-round pick. Maybe you wind up adding him as some little extra depth if you move on from some of your guys in the backfield. Christian Watson wound up being the national team's top wide receiver out of North Dakota. Top tight end, not shocking anyone, TREY McBRIDE out of Colorado State. Top offensive lineman, Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa. Now keep in mind, these are all guys that are, not guys, these are awards that are voted on by the opposition's team. So like quarterback is graded on by the defense. Running back graded by the linebackers. Wide receiver graded by the cornerbacks and safeties, that sort of thing. So graded by your peers, not necessarily by beat writers or things of that nature. Defensively, top defensive tackle, Travis Jones out of UConn. Top linebacker, Brian Asamoah out of Oklahoma. Top cornerback, Coby Bryant out of Cincinnati. And top safety, Jalen Petrie out of Baylor. So a lot of names to kind of look at and maybe dive a little bit deeper into. Overall, in the game side of things, Kenny Pickett for the Jets and the national team was a perfect 6 of 6 for 89 yards, 1 touchdown. He did take 1 sack. His longest pass of the day was 38 yards. He did stay in for 2 drives. So you're not going to see one quarterback over the course of the entire game because you want to get as many reps as possible. These guys are on a pitch count, and they're trying to get drafted. They don't need to take on extra hits if they don't need to. They're just kind of showcasing their talent. So, overall-wise, for the quarterbacks, for the national team, Desmond Ridder and Carson Strong were the other quarterbacks out of Cincinnati and Nevada. All the quarterbacks for the national team went 16 of 22 for a 73% completion percentage, 224 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and they took 1 sack. I really like this. This means the quarterback and the game plan that they put in place works. We saw Joe Flacco, we saw Mike White, we saw Josh Johnson all have success throughout the course of the season. We saw Zach Wilson start to catch on at the tail end of the year. So it's nice to know that it seems like maybe backup quarterback isn't as critical as we all thought it was, and maybe just the veteran presence is more important to have in that room with Zach Wilson. Rushing game-wise, we had 27 rushes for 114 yards. That was good for 4.2 yards per carry. That tells me the running game is working. The offensive line was getting their push up front. I like that a lot. As far as the receiving game goes for the National League, Jake Ferguson wound up leading us. 3 receptions, 62 yards, and a touchdown. He is the tight end out of, is it Wisconsin? I think it's Wisconsin. I'm losing my train of thought here. Yeah, I like him. I think, look, we didn't get to see the full complement of receivers. Jeremy Ruckert wound up not playing in this game because his grandfather passed away just before. I don't know if it was the day before or day of the game. And then Cole Turner, the other tight end for the, I shouldn't say the other tight end because Trey McBride was also there, but Cole Turner came in second with 2 receptions, 44 yards. Trey McBride did wind up finishing 2 receptions. I think it was 12 yards and a touchdown. So obviously we focused on the tight ends in this game. You wanted to see them. Now, Trey McBride getting the touchdown, very, very nice. You want to see that. But I would have loved to have seen Jeremy Ruckert. So, but maybe it's a good thing because from what I've heard, it sounds like McBride's really climbing up draft boards. As far as the American team goes, Malik Willis was the guy everyone was kind of watching on the American team. He finished the day 2 of 4, 11 yards, and a sack. He did have 4 rushes, 54 yards on the ground. He did have a really nice 34-yard rush where he ran like across the entire field. And that was in 3 drives of work for him. Sam Howell, the other quarterback on the American team, 6 of 9, 67 yards. He had 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, none of which were lost. He had 5 rushes, 29 yards, and a touchdown. So obviously the running style quarterbacks there helping a lot. It seems like weather was more of a factor for this game. Some of the people that were down there were saying that the wind was acting up a bit. So, what can we take away from this game? What did we learn? My top 5 takeaways. The national quarterbacks played well. That means the trade value is going to go up. Malik Willis is being talked about as potentially quarterback 1. Obviously, he was on the American side, but this is good for the New York Jets because anyone that could be connected to the quarterbacks, we saw Kenny Pickett talking with Matt Rule. That's a big thing because they're obviously sitting at pick 6. If they decide to come up and get a quarterback, maybe Atlanta wants to jump them or Washington wants to jump them to come up to number 4. Maybe that creates a trade down situation for the New York Jets. But even just those quarterbacks rising, we heard Pittsburgh might be interested in Malik Willis. So maybe you fall back from 10 back to 20. There's a lot of things that could go on. These quarterbacks looking good, and LaFleur and this coaching staff in general making the quarterbacks look good gives me a lot of confidence going forward, not just in the draft, but going forward into the Jets' future seasons. The national team only gave up 1 sack. This is really cool because the offensive line really needs a lot of time to gel, and we only had 1 week to work with these guys. So to give up 1 sack, I think is really, really good, whether that was, getting the ball out fast or just avoiding sacks in general. Either way, really good. After, what seemed like a rough start to the season for the New York Jets, seeing that the offensive line can gel and maybe getting a good idea of some of these offensive linemen like the guards, like I said, Zion Johnson, one to keep an eye on. Number 3, the national defense got 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles and an interception. We were getting after the quarterback, and I really like that. The MVP of the game, PERRION, WINFREY, defensive lineman out of Oklahoma, had 2 sacks, and then Boye Mafe, the defensive lineman from Minnesota, who looks to be a day 2 pick, could have won MVP of the game. 2 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss, and 1 forced fumble. This guy played really well as well. So I like this. I like seeing guys get after the quarterback because we need edge presence. Hopefully we worked enough with these guys where we could get some later round gems in the event we don't get the top 2 edge rushers, or one of the top 2 edge rushers at the very beginning of this draft. TREY McBride appears to be the top tight end. That is because everyone's talking about this guy. Like, he was the shining tight end coming into this because Jeremy Ruckert really didn't have a whole lot of exposure in the passing game. He was utilized more as like the 5th weapon on that Ohio State team. So to watch TREY McBride and hear all the rumors coming out, there's thoughts that maybe he goes in the tail end of the first round. And now you have to consider, okay, do the Jets wind up considering moving up? If that's the guy they really like, hey, he blocks, he catches, he's got this tenacity, he's got everything you want, he's a captain on his team. Is that enough for you to give up some picks to jump up into the first round? The first round tight end game is not a very good look. The last 10 years, there's a few that were taken in the Pro Bowl, or a few that went to the Pro Bowl, but outside of like Kyle Pitts and maybe Hawkinson for the Lions, you're probably talking about a lot of not great picks at tight end based on other players that were picked just behind them or how they've performed so far. So interesting. I don't know if I want to move up into the first. If TREY McBride's there at 35, I think I'd like that. Otherwise, I'm pretty cool with taking Jeremy Ruckert. I like the upside, and I would pair that with a nice free agent signing in free agency. And then my final takeaway from this game, I really like this. Ron Middleton goes 2-0 in his coaching career. This guy is really cool. Like, it seems like the players really like him and they fight for him. And this just tells me how deep this coaching staff is, because when I was watching Adam Gase and I was watching Todd Bowles, it felt like no one had any idea what they were doing. And that just is not the vibe I'm getting from this coaching staff. So it really has me excited. And I think that above all else, like, it's nice watching all the different things happen with all the players, but to know you have the correct people in place to make these decisions, to make these coaching assignments, and to coach these players along, including the growth that we saw from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, and even just from the beginning of the week of the Senior Bowl week to what we got in the game. So I really like that. I think it meant a lot to this Jets team. I think we're going to get a lot of really good players from this draft. I really do. I really think the Jets are going to get late-round guys, and not to mention the undrafted free agent side of things. They already have a comfortable relationship with the Jets coaching staff, so that means they probably have an inside track to scoop up those guys as well. So, some thoughts. Let me know everything you're thinking down below in the comments section. And as always, go Jets.